great message. It's interesting how God will put a message on your heart, and you had no idea what he was doing it for other than the fact that it was there, and then next thing you know, you get a call and say, Jeremy, can you give the message in adult church on the 14th? All right, I got you. And I already knew where I was going because God had planted this message on my heart a few weeks ago. So my message today is get rid of the weeds in your life. Get rid of the weeds in your life. And we're going to go into some detail about it, but I've got to tell you a little bit of a story before we get started. I am in the past have not been a very good gardener. My wife can speak for that. You plant the seeds and then if you don't do anything with it after that, your garden isn't going to be very good, or it's not going to be at all in some cases, okay? So this year, I have my first, what I will call, real attempt at planting a garden. Okay, so I got the seeds, I got the fertilizer, and then there's some things that I had to do. There was a process. All right, you don't just throw it on the ground and hope that it works out all right. So the process started with I didn't have any ground cleared to do it. All we had was grass, and we had it in the back alley. So we had a flat shovel, and I had to clear the ground. I had to take the grass off at the roots. And that's not a very fun process, but that's what you got to do unless you want some trouble with your garden later on. So I took care of that. I did that. And then thanks to Joe Wassinger, I had a tiller, and I tilled, and then I tilled, and then I tilled some more, and then I tilled a little bit more after that because this ground it wasn't expecting a garden to be coming to roost where it was at. And it's in our back alley, and the ground wasn't real super good. It was rocky and stuff like that, but I had to do my due diligence to get that ground ready to plant this garden, even to the skepticism of some of my family members as I was still doing that. But so I did it. So after I got the ground ready, now you got to plant the seed, right? So I planted corn, I planted cucumbers, I planted watermelon, I planted peppers. The peppers did not work out so well. So I planted those seeds. But with those seeds, I had to have fertilizer and stuff like that to go with it. So I mixed that in with the soil to make sure it's ready to go. All right? So after that, you plant the seeds, you fertilize it, then you water it, and similar to the tilling, and you water it again, and you water it again, and you water it again, and you keep going. And there was, I talked about in my offering about how there's an expectation. Let me tell you, the expectation is that those plants come up and out of the ground. My expectation was that it came around a little bit quicker than what it did. But it was kind of cool this year, apparently, which is not good and conducive to plants popping out of the ground when you just put them in there. So I had to be patient. So, I'd go out and check, and I'd water it, and I'd look, and then one day, I see on one of my cucumber hills, just barely poking out, and then the corn, and then the watermelon. Not so much the peppers. But everything else started to come up. And then they're growing. Stuff is growing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I might have done something right here. Not sure yet, but I might have done something right. So it's continuing to grow, right? And it's growing, and you can see progress every day. It's almost like a young child. You're sitting there, I'd go out there and look at it, be looking in there. I'm like, all right, that's going, and no peppers, but that's going and that's going. So I soon gave up on the peppers and was like, I can get them at Dillon's. But things were growing, and that euphoria of, hey, I've got something going here, right? So I'm pumped. I'm telling everybody in the house, told you so. Told you. If you do it right, guess what happens? We're going to have a garden. And so stuff was growing. But guess what else comes along with your beautiful garden plants? That really, like everything else that you put in that garden, are weeds. And the weeds, they grow and grow and grow as well, unless you take care of them, okay? Weeds will choke out a garden if you let them go. They will choke it out and you won't have anything. My mom she has a green thumb, and she could grow a garden. I mean, she grew a garden the size of this room. Yeah, not happening here. But it was huge. I mean, I say the size, it was a couple different plots on our ground, but you kind of combined them together. It was the size of this room, and it was insane. But she had a green thumb. I am trying to pick that up. But she was always weeding it, because if she didn't, those plants weren't going to grow. Okay? So, weeds, garden, not a good combination. But they're going to be there, and you got to take care of them. So I'll come back to this story here in just a little bit. So, talked about weeds in the garden. Guess what we have in our lives? Sometimes we know it, sometimes we don't. We have weeds. We have weeds in our lives. All right? It's obviously metaphorically speaking, but we have weeds in our lives. They come in many different shapes and sizes. It's one thing. Some of them are tiny. Does anybody have crabgrass in their yard? My mom is 79. She'll be 80 in March. She goes out, gets on her hands and knees, and pulls her crabgrass. I've told her, Mom, pay somebody to do it, or just mow the crabgrass too. But crabgrass will take over your yard. But, so it comes in many different shapes and sizes. It's a little bit difficult to see sometimes. Stickers, they're no fun. Stuff like that. Weeds will grow. All right? Matthew 13:38. Okay? So this is out of the New King James Version. It says here, the field is the world, the good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares, when I say tares, those are the weeds. All right? The tares are the sons of the wicked one. So it says it right here in the Bible. Weeds are not good. They are not a good thing. And we have to get rid of them. But the good seeds are the sons of the kingdom. So we talk about good seeds. When you have good seeds, you see the fruit of that. You see the benefits from those good seeds. If you have bad seeds, you're not going to see good fruit. It's plain, pure, and simple. If you have bad seeds, you are not going to see good fruit. You like my legal size paper? I don't like to type out my messages because I write all over the place. I mean, it's like a maze sometime when you look at it and lines go in here. But these weeds in our lives come straight from the wicked one, like it says in Matthew 13:38. All right, the devil wants nothing more than to have your life full of weeds so it can mess it up on a daily basis. That's what he wants to do. He does not want you to enjoy good fruit. He wants you to be living in the weeds so you can't see through the dang things, because if you let them go, they're thick. All right, we've all seen it. You've seen weeds in yards. You've seen weeds on the side of the road, in fields. I feel for farmers because, man, those things are nuts sometimes. But you see them there, and they're not good. But some of you might be sitting there going, I'm good. I don't have weeds. My life's perfect. We all have them. We all have weeds. It's plain, pure, and simple. We all have weeds. All right? Some of them are pretty easy to see. Some of them are very obvious. Some of them kind of sneak through the back door. Okay, my watermelon vines. These are good. That's good fruit when it's going to produce itself. But those vines are going everywhere right now. I mean, everywhere. And it's like not just a little bit here and a little bit there. It's like overnight you're like, how did that happen? But that's a good one, because watermelons. But guess what? If your weeds, the weeds will do the same thing if you let them do that. So this is probably the most common weed that people can think about, okay? It's the biggest of all, and it's the people we choose to hang around with and allow to speak into our lives, all right? So Proverbs 12:26 says this: "The righteous should choose his friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray." All right? The righteous should choose his friends carefully. We have to. We have to choose our friends carefully. I know some of your parents are like, "You see, I told you so." All right, it's there, I told you so. But guess what, parents? We are just as susceptible. All right? Now, as parents, we work with our children, and we raise them up to make good decisions, and we hope that they choose good friends. All right? I know most of my kids' friends and a good chunk of their families. All right? Do I know 100%? No. But I keep an eye on it. All right? Because as a parent, that's my responsibility. And they, not very often have they made cruddy choices on friends. The ones that there's kids that they used to be friends with, not so much anymore, because they had a different standard in their life, and I'm thankful for that. All right? Does that mean they're perfect? No. Hannah's going, "What? Seriously?" No. Does that mean they're perfect? No, it doesn't mean they're perfect. But they've done a pretty good job choosing their friends. Now, on the other hand, I've seen in my life friends come and go. I've seen friends come and go in the lives of my families, and I've seen friends that have stayed in the lives of my families that should not have been there, because they're not good influences. All right? The lifestyle is not a good lifestyle. Okay? So again, this is for everyone to hear. And when I talk about hanging around with people, watch who you're hanging around with. Watch who you're allowing to speak into your lives. Okay? It's so important, because if you're allowing somebody to speak into your life that doesn't have a relationship with God, that doesn't know anything about how God wants us to be, they're going to be speaking stuff into your life that isn't going to benefit you. Okay? Now, if you're at work and your boss is not a Christian, this can sometimes be a challenge for people. It can be a real challenge. But if they're asking you to go do this or go do that, and it's part of your job, that's one thing. Unless it goes against what God's saying. Just because you don't like doing something at work doesn't mean that what your boss is telling you to do is a bad thing as they're speaking into your life. Because let's be honest, if you have worked a day in your life, and I'm talking even if you've only worked one day in your life, somebody has told you to do something that you don't want to do. I get it. All right? But we have to, and that's why it's so important that y'all are reading your Bibles, that you're praying, that you're taking time to talk with God, so you're built up and so you can discern what's right and wrong, because the devil is sneaky. He's going to make it sound awful good. And you're going to think, okay, we're good. I'm good. That sounds good. Sounds like a good time. Okay. Listen to God. God will tell you. But the key is that you listen to him. Sometimes we'll ask God for help and then we shut our ears off because maybe he's not telling you what you want to hear. I remember when I was on my job search, and I love where I worked at before I worked here, but it was time to move on. And I had a couple of opportunities before my current job that had come up and that I interviewed for, that I was a finalist, that I thought I was going to get, and I didn't get. And I was just like, God. You just get upset, and then you kind of wonder, what did I do wrong? And then you listen. Remember I talked about that listening point? God had something better for me. Okay? God had something better for me because I listened to him. And guess what? He did. My opportunity now with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas is unbelievable for me. I mean, for my family, for everybody. I mean, it just is what it was God. It was God's timing because I listened. So I want you guys to make sure that you are listening. And again, this is for everyone to hear. So, who is speaking into your life? Who's speaking into your lives? We all have people speaking into our lives. But who are you letting to speak into your life? Is it someone that is godly and that will speak into your life with something that is going to build you up and that's going to edify you? Or is it somebody speaking into your life that's speaking from the perspective of the world and doing what they, and I'm not saying they are speaking into your life and meaning harm on you. I want you to understand that. But somebody can give you advice, and it can be bad advice. Okay, somebody can do that. It happens. Somebody can give you advice, and you take it to heart, and you do it, and it's bad advice. That stinks. We've all been there. A lot of us have probably wrote a book on it by now. All right? But when you can discern between right and wrong, there's a difference between somebody speaking to you and somebody speaking into your life. People can talk to you all day long until the cows come home. All right? But where do you allow it to go? All right? Where do you allow it to go? All right? Buddy and I were fishing yesterday, okay? And we're sitting there, and I had my back to the west, all right? And he was on the other side of the pond, facing to the west. His back was to the east. And pretty soon I hear him yell, "Hey, you got some visitors." I looked over my left shoulder, and there was a whole herd of cows just staring at me. I mean, they were staring me down because they're like, "Never seen you before. Why are you here?" Well, I soon figured out that they were not real happy with my location because there was a little spillway right there that they like to walk in and walk into the water. And I was right next to it. And they were not happy. So when I talk about the cows coming home, the cows came and they were staring at me and they were not happy. But they found another way. They're like, "Oh, we're going to go in over here." And then it wasn't long after that we left, and they waited. And once we left, they went right where they wanted to go. So, who are we allowing to speak into our life? Are we speaking into other people's lives? Are we edifying other people? Are we helping them out? That's something that God requires us to do as well. To whom much is given, much is expected. I'm going to give you a little bit of softball story. Okay, I no longer play. That ship sailed several years ago. Probably sailed a little bit longer than it should have, according to my wife. You ever play, especially us older fellas, and your body says, no, but your mind says, "Yeah, you can still do that." So now I just umpire because I still enjoy the game and I still like to give back. You hear some things on the softball field, okay? People do things on the softball field. They talk not so good sometimes on the softball field. Not everybody. And the habits they have on the softball field aren't real good either. You ever hear about beer league softball? You ever heard that name? That's what I umpire. Okay? Here a couple weeks ago, it was really pretty hot night. And I was umpiring 4 games that night. I think I was between my first and second game because the sun was shining and I was going through some waters, and I went into the dugout between games, and they're all sitting in there and had a cooler, and it was full of beer, and they were getting their beers out and drinking their beers, which if you're of age, fine, if that's your choice, which they were. And they're like, "Hey man, you want a beer?" Nope. And let me tell you, in Ellis County, when you're of this age and somebody asks you if you want a beer and you say nope, they kind of look at you, kind of like those cows looked at me. Like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I don't want it. I go, I never have. I don't like it. I'm like, well, kind of looked at me, and I went on to explain a little bit of why, a little bit of my why, speaking into their lives. And I told them that my dad had a problem with alcohol. I have some family members that have a problem with alcohol, and I told myself that I wasn't going to touch it because I didn't want to have that same problem. And they all listened when I was talking to them. Where they took it from there is up to them, but they all listened. I spoke into their lives. It might have been small, but even small can turn into something big, because next time they might think about it themselves and think, maybe their dad had the same issue, or it could be their mom, or it could be anybody, somebody close to them. I spoke into their lives. Sometimes that can be a weed in somebody's life. I'm thankful it is not a weed in my life. All right? But that was a choice that I made a long time ago, so I shared that with them, and I spoke into their lives. Has anybody ever heard of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? This is one of my favorite stories from the Bible. One of my favorite object lessons back in children's church. I love it. And I didn't bring the object lesson out for you guys, although it's pretty cool. You light something up, and then it burns out, and it doesn't singe anything, and then I can grab a hold of that rag and use it just like nothing happened. If you ever want to see it, let me know. I'll do it for you. I love it. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were pretty good guys. All right, and I am paraphrasing a lot of this because I don't need to read it word for word from the Bible. But there was Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were trusted advisors for King Nebuchadnezzar because Daniel said, "Hey, these guys are good guys. You should be a part of you should allow them to be a part of your life and what you're doing and ruling your kingdom." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were doing this, and they were advising King Nebuchadnezzar, and he's like, all right, they're pretty good guys. All right, I'll listen to them. But then he also had an ear out for others and listening to others to speak into his life. And he built a golden idol, an image of himself. It was 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide, of gold, pretty big, and said, all right, here's what's going to happen. We are going to play some music, all right? And when this music is played, everybody's going to bow down and worship the idol. So that's what happened. And then there was 3 that didn't. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, I ain't going to do it because I worship one God. I worship my God. I do not worship you, King Nebuchadnezzar, or a golden image. All right, but King Nebuchadnezzar didn't know this at first. He didn't know it when it first happened. The Chaldeans, and forgive me if I mispronounce that, were in his ear and said, hey, you know what, King? You know how you said when the music played, everybody was supposed to bow down, was supposed to worship? Guess what? Those guys didn't do it. You know how it's like they were tattletaling on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It was tattletale. They were telling on him. And King Nebuchadnezzar was hot. He was not happy. So he's like, a lot of people, he would have probably sent them to the furnace right then and there, but he knew how valuable Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were. So he basically got them together, brought them to him and said, okay, I'm sure you guys just didn't understand what was going on here. You didn't listen. So let's try this again. When the music plays, you guys are supposed to bow down. And they basically told King Nebuchadnezzar, I don't care what you do, how many times you play this music, I will never bow down and worship this idol. And so King Nebuchadnezzar said, he was even more upset this time. And he said, you know the fiery furnace? He says, not only are we going to have it, but we're going to heat it 7 times hotter than what it normally is. 7 times. All right, so they heated it 7 times hotter, and he got 2 of his best soldiers to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, took them up to the fiery furnace. In this time, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego could have said, all right, okay. I don't want to go into the furnace. We'll bow down. And all it would have taken was one of them to go, Okay, listen, guys, let's just do this. Let's just do it. That way we don't go in the furnace. We know what we believe. But guess what? What would that have been saying to everybody else? It would have said, your God isn't really that important to you. So why should I? Why should I listen to what you're saying and what you're doing? Because it would have taken one of them, and then the other one would have listened. And they're like, maybe you're right. And then next thing you know, they're worshiping an idol against what they believe. But they opted to say, I don't care what you do. Our God will deliver us from this fiery furnace. And if he does not, it doesn't matter, because we're not going to worship your God. So these two soldiers took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up to this fiery furnace, threw them into the furnace. They fell into the furnace. The soldiers died because it was so hot from the flames. They died right then and there. And then King Nebuchadnezzar is sitting there looking in the furnace and going, you ever look at something, you're just looking real close at it? This is how I imagine him looking into that furnace and going, wait a minute. We put 3 guys in there, right? There's just 3, right? Yeah. Then why are there 4 walking around inside this fiery furnace? Why? Because God was in there with them. They opened up the door to the furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out with nary a singe on their clothes or on their hair or on their body. Not even the smell of smoke was on them. That is how much God watched over them and protected them. How much did their actions, when I say speak into somebody's life, you can speak into their lives by what you say, but you can also speak into their lives by what you do. Their actions came out and said, our God will protect us. And it spoke into King Nebuchadnezzar's life. Because King Nebuchadnezzar at that point says, we will only worship the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they spoke into King Nebuchadnezzar, but they spoke into so many more right there. They're speaking into our lives today because it's in the Bible, and it's something that we can see today. Okay? So a pretty cool story about Meshach and Abednego. All right? So if we listen to the wrong people and let them speak into our lives, the weeds are going to get thicker. So back to weeds for a second. Well, what weeds are you talking about, Pastor Jeremy? What are you talking about? Bad habits? Habits that aren't edifying your life? Okay? I am efforting to eat a lot better and having some success. That's a bad habit. All right? It is. And for me, it's a problem. But I'm working on it, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job so far. All right? So, and that's just one bad habit. Alcoholism, huge bad habit. It can affect so many people, not just you personally. It affects everybody around you. All right? It's nasty. All right? And I don't think there's probably a person in here that hasn't had their life affected by somebody that had a problem with alcohol one way or another. Okay, it might not be directly, but it could be indirectly. Okay, alcoholism. Okay, gossip. Oh my gosh, gossip. Don't gossip. I have a thing for me that if I hear something about somebody, I'm going to go ask them and be like, hey, this is what I heard. And get it, find out through them. You don't have to gossip about it. Oh my gosh, did you hear about such and such and such and such? Well, I heard it from this person who heard it from this person who heard it from this person. Have you ever played the game where you speak a statement, you whisper it in somebody's ears, and you go down the line and see where it ends up, what it's like at the end? Usually it is nowhere flipping close to where it started. So just go to the source. So gossip. Fellas, pornography. Shh, Jeremy, don't talk about that. We're in church. Brutal. Brutal. Okay? And there's so many more. I'm not going to go on down the line. I think you guys are getting the point that there's a lot of things out there. All right? And not all these weeds on the surface look bad, but they sure can be. All right? They sure can be. I talked about the crabgrass. Has anybody ever pulled out an entire root system of crabgrass? Oh, it's more than just right there. It just spreads underground throughout and will ruin a yard. It's insane. I had some crabgrass in my garden because that was there, and so it was a little bit easier once I took the roots off of everything else. But then I'm like, what's this? It's everywhere. So I'm on the surface, it might it's not too bad. But guess what? Those weeds are planting roots that are nasty, and they'll get after you. Okay? They will get after you. And we got a little bit more, not too much. But I want you guys to really remember this. I'd written it down, and then God added to it, and then he emphasized it again to me this morning. This is something that y'all need to hear. These weeds that you're allowing to stay around are keeping you from fulfilling God's will in your life. These weeds that you're allowing to stick around are keeping you from fulfilling God's will in your life because it's blocking something. There's something there it's blocking. All right? So we got to get rid of them. All right? We got to get rid of the weeds. All right, so back to the garden. All right? So I left off with the weeds showing up, right? These weeds stink. I don't like them. They're not fun. What am I going to do about it? So I have some garden tools. All right? I have a hoe. So I'm like, I'm going to go and take care of these things with my hoe. You chop them up. You chop at them. Clean off that surface. All right. Rake, get them out of there. You think you got it right? Because you might clean that surface. You got that surface taken care of. It looks good. All right? I found out really quickly that weeds come back with a vengeance when you don't knock them out at the root and get them all out of there. So, guess what came back? Weeds. And no matter how many times, I tried it like 3 times with the hoe. No matter how many times I tried it that way, guess what? It came on back. Anybody ever heard I know you all have. If you haven't heard this statement, then you're welcome for this one this morning. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Guess what wasn't working? That hoe was not taking care of business for me. It was not. It was a temporary fix to a long-term problem. Okay? So, I was like, all right, I'm going to have to get down and dirty on these things. So, for a long time, I was on my hands and my knees in my garden, pulling every last one of the weeds. And I happened to be really careful on some of them because they were right up next to the base of my plants. All right? So if you're pulling those weeds out and those roots are almost intertwined, have to be careful because you might pull out the plant too, and then you're done. So I had to be really careful. It took some time. Another suggestion, spray yourself with bug spray before you do this. I did not. My back looked like connect the dots. So, but those weeds had to be pulled up at the root, and you had to get all of it. Sometimes you pull it, and it's coming along, and then breaks off, and there's still some root left in there. Guess what happens if you leave it that way? That weed will still grow back. So I pulled them by the roots, and I pulled a lot. There was a lot out there, wasn't there? There was a lot. But it's looking pretty good now. All right? The plants are growing better. All right? But you pull it up by the root, you throw it to the side, and those weeds will die. And they will die right then and there. And pretty soon they wither away because they have nothing feeding them. And then they're basically, you can just, and they're dust and they're gone. Or you can choose to leave them there, and they'll grow back, they'll take over your garden, they'll choke it out, and your fruit will be done for. Does that mean that a garden still can't grow with weeds in it? Yeah, it can grow, but it's not going to be as good. It's not going to be as good. We're enjoying the fruit of that garden right now. A little bit of it. Got some cucumbers growing. Pulled a few of those. And they're good. Right, Gabe? Gabe's like, I don't know. I don't eat vegetables. So, but they're pretty good. All right. We're fixing to have a lot more, so I'll probably be bringing some to church on Sunday mornings. So everybody can have as many as I bring, but they'll be coming. All right. So everything's good to go at that point, right? Yeah, it's good. But guess what happens if you don't pay attention to it? Those weeds, there's going to be another weed, and another one, and another one. You got to still pull those. Don't go in with the hoe. I mean, it can be temporary, but go in and pull those suckers out. Get those roots. Take care of them. Don't let them sit around in your life, because if they sit around in your life, they become more and more and more and more rooted in your life. Has anybody ever had to clear out a sewer line or a water line because there was a tree or something that grew in and grew into the lines? All you see is the surface, but underneath, that spreads out. But if you get rid of it and pull that root, it's gone. But you have to pay attention to it. You cannot let it sit. It's your choice. It's not a choice that Pastor Wes, Pastor Tim, Pastor Brandon, myself can make for you. It's not a choice that God can make for you. It's not a choice that anybody else can make for you but yourself. All right? It's not. You know, and we can't force you. Okay? All right? I talked about, I have a family member right now that has alcohol problems. I won't mention their name, but they do. And they can't be forced to go into rehab. I can't force them to do it. The only way that it's successful is if they choose and see the problem and go in and take care of it. So you have to choose. You have to see the problem. You have to go in and take care of it. That doesn't mean somebody can't make you aware of it, because sometimes there's things that we're not even aware of until somebody goes, hey, did you notice that? And then you're like, no, I didn't, but I can see it now. Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. That first part, and do not be conformed to this world. Conforming to this world is like having a garden of just weeds, and you didn't even plant any other seeds. It's just weeds, because they'll grow. Even if you don't do anything to it, they'll grow. All right? Romans 12:2 is perfect for that. Okay? But Pastor Jeremy, it's too hard. It's been there too long. It's been a part of my life for this long or this long or this long, whatever it may be. We've been friends since we were kids. It does not mean you can't associate with somebody. But again, it comes down, are you allowing them and their habits to speak into your life and to become a part of your habits in your life? Okay? Like I said, I umpire softball. I do not conform to the language that is used out on the softball field. Whew. There are some times where I'm like, if we had a crowd full of sailors right now, they'd be going, oh my gosh, what did they say? But just because I'm around it doesn't mean that that's a part of me. I choose to not let it be a part of me. Have I had people yell at me and cuss at me while I'm umpiring softball? Oh, yeah. But I sit there and look at them, ask them if they're done, and then I move on with the game. Move on. So don't allow it to become a part of your life. And this one, sorry, Richard, this one I didn't give to you, so this one's not up there, but Joshua 1:5. And I want you to pay special attention to the end of this verse. It says, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. God did not say it was going to be easy. Never said, hey, once you live your life for God, everything's easy. That is not the case. Anybody in here ever had problems? Yeah, all of us have. All right? God didn't say it was going to be easy, but at the end of Joshua 1:5 it says, I will not leave you nor forsake you. God's going to be with you every step of the way. He's there to help you garden if you allow you. Let me start that again. He is there to help you garden as long as you allow him to. He'll be right there to help get rid of those weeds. I know some of them are deep, and you're saying, well, gosh darn it. Jeremy, that's just hard. I know. Okay? But the reward for getting those weeds out of there are far better than just letting them sit there and continue to be a part of your life. It's going to take some work. But like I said, it says in Joshua 1:5, he will never leave you nor forsake you. I will not, is what he says. I will not. Doesn't say, well, unless you root for the Broncos. If you do that, you're on your own, sorry. Or the Wildcats, or the Sooners. But no, he doesn't say that. He does not say that. All right? 1 Corinthians 16:13 says, watch, stand fast in the faith, be brave, be strong. Watch. You got to be aware. Stand fast. Don't waver. Be brave because the devil's going to come after you. Be strong because you have God as your root. Ain't nothing going to blow you over if you have God as your root. Devil's going to try. He's going to try until those cows come home. But he can't do it if we don't allow him to. Okay? Philippians 4:13, everybody probably knows this one. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Let me tell you, I was not looking forward to going out and weeding that garden. It is not fun to do. It is not like, oh, yay, I got to go out and do that. But I did it. It's due for another one. It's not as bad this time, though, let me tell you. I've got to do that, so that'll probably be a this evening project if anybody is bored. But I've got to do it. But like I said, I've got to do it. But God will be with you. Okay? God will be with you. So I want you to remember that. It's what you need to do to keep the weeds out of your life. Satan's going to keep coming at it. He's not going to stop. But if we allow him to be successful, it's because we allow him to be successful. If you have weeds in your life and you choose not to address them and pull the roots out, that's your choice. But man, for me, I'm pulling those suckers out left and right before they start, before they get bad. All right? And if your soil's a little bit wet, it's a little bit easier to get those weeds out, but okay? So don't hesitate. Now's the time. Wherever you're at in your life, now's the time. We all can do it. You know, we have a great God. And he loves us more than we could ever imagine. But he wants us to live the best possible life we can live. He does. So if you have weeds in your life and you're wanting to get rid of them, there's no time like the present. Why not do it now? You know, at work, I do my best to get stuff off my plate and get it off and get it done. So I want you guys to do the same. Every head bowed, every eye closed. Heavenly Father, we thank you for helping us get rid of the weeds in our life. Lord, we thank you that you promise that you will never leave us nor forsake us. Give us strength. Give us the courage to stand strong with you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.